shine in the morning sun. Egypt's wisdom meets everyone. Edu-Next-AI calls the world to see a future we're building for you and me. Egypt co-codes the future hand in hand. AI at the Nile's edge we stand. From our roots to the stars we soar high. Edu-Next-AI we rise, we try, learning together bright and free. The Nile carries our destiny. The Nile carries our destiny.
It is our great honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Moataz Darwish, Associate Professor of Practice at the Onsi Sawiris Business School. Dr. Darwish is a distinguished academic and professional with over 30 years of experience spanning commercial management and business education. His career uniquely bridges rigorous academic expertise with real-world impact, having served as a senior executive at Shell before transitioning into higher education. This wealth of experience allows Dr. Moataz to bring a rare and valuable perspective where practice meets theory and leadership meets innovation. We are truly privileged to have him with us today to share his insights. Please join me in a warmly welcoming Dr. Moataz. Dr. Moataz, the floor is yours, and thank you for joining us today. Thank you very much.
Let's keep it interactive. It's hopefully a fun topic. Obviously on a face-to-face or maybe on a interactive sort of breakouts and the likes, it would have been more interesting, but hopefully you'll get something out of it anyway. Again, this is a topic that is pretty common in the strategic management domain literature. And the broader topic, if you're sort of interested academically to look at it, is the strategy foresight or strategic foresight. And one of the famous tools, and it has its own line of literature, is the scenario thinking, scenario planning sort of literature, line of literature. It's not very common in this side of the world, but it's really a very insightful, interesting topic. And I happen to know a bit about it because I've attended a big program in Oxford that sort of took us through this in details. Oxford is very well known for this sort of topic. I'm also coming from years of employment in Shell, and Shell is very well noted for their knowledge in this area since inception, actually. So I've been privileged to sort of interact with these two organizations and get some insights around this topic. And yeah, let's see if it's of interest to you as well. Okay, so let me flip. Let's see if it flips. Not sure why. See. I'm trying to flip the slide and it's not.
Do you need any help? Do you need any help? Can I help you from here?
عايز اسكرول السلايدز بس مش عارف ليه مش
Doesn't work from here also.
So let me stop the sharing and
Yes,
share
stop.
again.
Yes. And reshare again. I think it will work.
Share the desktop.
Okay.
This is a PDF. I don't want the PDF. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it now, but it is not in the
Yeah.
preview format. It is
Yeah.
normal format.
It should be now. It's showing now and flipping on my side. Is it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's
all
working.
good?
Yes, now.
Yeah.
Camille. Good. So I start with a question of why do we need to know the future? I mean, obviously, scenario planning and strategy foresight eventually is all about knowing the future. So why do we need to know the future? So that's one big question. The other probably is how difficult is it to know the future? And these are two very big questions. I'm not going to go into details, but I'm going to give you a bit of some answers around that. So one obvious intuitive answer is that we should all be concerned about the future because we will have to spend the rest of our lives there. So it's basically every time we think about something, it's probably not going to be yesterday, it's going to be tomorrow. So that's a big one. So that's why future foresight is sort of digging deeper into this. The other thing, which is sort of also connected, is that it really helps create this competitive advantage. Anybody interested in strategy would probably be familiar with competitive advantage. If you're cynical about competitive advantage, you can drop the word competitive, and it would still make a lot of sense. It's creating advantage, whether at the personal level, at an organizational level, or at a firm level. So it really helps because even if you're 2 steps ahead, even in sports, a fraction of a second can make a lot of difference. And this is Gretzky's very famous quote that we always quote in business schools, that it's really about a good hockey player plays where the puck is. Puck is sort of the ball in hockey. Huh? A great player plays where the puck is going to be. So it's really about the future in that sense. So anticipating what will happen is very critical in achieving advantage. Okay, so how difficult is it to envision the future? I mean, we have brains can think. It's just, let's use our brains and let's think about the future, right? We discovered that from biology that it's a bit of a tricky one. Why? Because we found out that the brain is actually always trying to predict the future and shows us the future. However, the same parts of the brain that thinks about the future are the exact ones that think about the past and uses memory. So if we rely on the brain, we will end up with a very tricky position, which is that we are extrapolating the past, thinking that this is what the future will entail, which is one of the biggest flaws strategically any person can do. So beware of that. Future is important. We know it's important because it really adds the advantage at any level. And if we just stop at using the brain, we will, and not consciously design something around the future, imagination, we will fall in the very big trap of using the past, extrapolating the past, and coming up with something assuming it will be the future. Any guesses if you use the past, extrapolate it, and think this is the future? What do we call this in organizational terms or terminologies? Any thoughts? If you want to type it down or something. A very famous term that all organizations and firms use, and it's a very well-regarded terminology, and it's exactly the outcome of what I'm explaining in this slide. Any thoughts? Guesses? I can't see the chat, but maybe Dr. Noha can help me with that. لو في أي chats بتقول أي حاجة let me know.
That chat is empty as
Em-
they said yes. They
So
said
literally everybody is asleep by now.
yes. They said yes. It is yes. Yeah.
Like to give you the answer very quickly,
Yeah.
this is a process we call forecasting. So people, when they forecast, they literally do what I've just explained. They extrapolate the past and they assume that the past will be the future. So is that actually useful? It's sometimes useful in stable environments where the future is really very predictable. Yeah, but we know that this is not the case anymore. So the future is coming to be more and more uncertain. This whole conference is talking about AI. We have no clue what AI will do to us. So we actually can't really extrapolate from the past. Guess what? AI was not in the past anyway. So good luck with extrapolating from the past on that one. Unless you'll start playing very smart and say, AI is like internet, AI is like the PC, AI is like this and that. And then we sort of draw the line and we live in this, what we call in psychology, illusion of certainty. Because we want to sort of feel a bit confident about what will happen, right? And to do that, we can either assume that things will happen in that way, or we can be very critical about it. Most of the people live in the illusion of uncertainty, of certainty. And ample stories about that in this slide, but I'm going to leave you with this one very interesting slide about how useful building scenarios can really give us insights into the future, especially if it's something we haven't seen or at least haven't seen for a long time. So this is a real case. This is the National Intelligence Council predicting some scenarios for the future. And actually, one of the scenarios of the future was a pandemic in 2020. And that was written in 2004. So again, and they're actually building a story around it. So that's how useful it can get when you start building scenarios in an insightful way rather than extrapolating or forecasting something blindly. And we'll talk in a minute how to do that. It's pretty straightforward, at least in my narrative today. I'll sort of close this very small module with this critical quote, which says, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." So it's really about you think the future will be X, Y, Z, and you're really certain about that. And it's not. This is a much bigger problem than not knowing. You'd rather leave it as I don't know than draw something that is dangerously wrong. So keep that thought in mind. Any thoughts? Just stop me. Skip this one. I'll just, again, activity. I'm not sure if you'll be able to do that, but that could be done, by the way, individually. So I'll leave you for a few minutes to think and try to do this very simple exercise. It's really very simple. Just a pen and a paper. And try to draw time. Obviously, we're talking about future, we're talking about past, talking about now. So, okay, so let's talk about how to draw it, just for the fun of it. Can you draw line? If I give you sort of a mandate now to say, you know what, go to your boss tomorrow with a strategic report where you would explain to them a plan for 5 years. How would you draw the 5 years? Any thoughts on that? How would you do that in a formal context with your boss, with your organization? How do usually people do that? Have a think I'll just pause for a minute and give you time to sort of at least visualize it mentally. Absolutely, absolutely. So I see hands raised. So I'm assuming people are starting to draw time.
Hannah Sayed, yes. Please,
Yeah,
I will.
yes.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm already unmuted,
already
Mohat.
unmute yourself. Okay, thank you.
Yes, okay. Dr. Moataz, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to answer this outstanding and fabulous question. So first, let me to change the question because I'd like to speak personally. So I would like to change the question, and instead of saying, how can we draw time? I can say, how can we shape time? Is it okay?
I'm not sure where you headed with this, but let me hear.
Yeah. Personally speaking, I'd like to change this question to how to shape time, because I usually connect between time and the future based on the strenuous efforts and the dazzling leaps we usually take in our lives. Because the strenuous efforts that the persons make and the strenuous leap they usually take in their life help them to fulfill anything they need to achieve in the near time or in the far time based on their accomplishments and efforts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you think you're really on top of your you can be really on top of your life and the organization's life and achieve whatever you put forward. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, based on the
Regardless of what happens. So
yes,
environment has nothing to do with it.
yes, I prefer to base everything on the accomplishments, the efforts, and the leaps the persons usually take.
Yeah, but again, that's exactly my question. So you think you are in full control of what will happen, regardless of what happens around you. So
Yes,
if a pandemic hits you tomorrow or hits us tomorrow, you can still do whatever you want, right?
yep, because I'm highly interested in being realistic. Once I keep something in my mind, I prefer to fulfill it or to reach it, whatever the circumstances around me are.
Yeah, fine. I mean, I know where you're coming from, and I know I'm very familiar with the literature you're coming from, which is positive psychology and all these kind of things. But again, can you draw the line to me? I mean, even if you're on top of it and you want to shape it and you're everything, you're sort of very deliberate on it. Can you draw it? Can you envision how to draw it?
Definitely, I have to draw, I have
How?
to vision. Yes,
How?
but I can say that the highest percentage has to be dedicated for reality, being with the ground.
Reacting?
Reality, being with the ground, being a realistic person, not just illusion or dream or aspirations or expectations.
Okay, because I sensed a bit of contradiction now, because usually in positive psychology, it's really not about this. It's more about just setting a big ambition and then try to follow suit with it. But anyway, fine. Azza, you want to say something?
Hello, Dr. Moataz. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here today. I
Yeah.
know it's a really difficult topic, and time is a never-ending topic, to be honest. But it is based on each person's perspective of time. So, for example, I myself if I want to draw my time, or if I want to draw time, I would draw the slots of the tasks that I have finished in a
Mhm.
specific day. For example, today I went to my 9 to 5 job. I came back home. I attended a conference. I blah blah blah. By the end of the day, I will feel accomplished. So like I had this much of time today. Tomorrow I have only one task, so my time is like this. So if I want to draw time, I would just think of the tasks that I have to do every day, because this is basically giving a sense of structure to time.
Okay.
That's
Okay. Yeah, perfect. But of course, this will not work if I tell you draw line for the coming 10 years, right?
yes.
So again, let me jump into this picture. So this really, when you look at the literature of the foresight, strategic foresight, we compare between the roadmap mindset, which is what most of the people think of, which is like milestones to achieve something. So it's this. I don't know if you see my cursor. Well, do you see my cursor?
We see it. We see it.
Ah, perfect. So this roadmap is usually a typical way of thinking about it. And I think the speaker sort of alluded to it somehow, which is task-oriented, milestone-oriented. This is what we call the misleading roadmap. Yeah. Why is that misleading? Because we know for a fact that the future is not linear. We just simplify things in our brain and we think that the future is linear. It's step-by-step milestones. This will happen, then this will happen, then this will happen. Voila, we are there. We've done what we want to do. We know this is not true. So in foresight, I'm just introducing this concept for you. We call it the time cone. So when we think of time in a foresight science, we think of a time cone where this is the point of the cone that is now. And as we think of the future, we open the cone of time where the closest to now is a bit more certain. And as you go further down the line, it becomes wider and uncertain. Yeah. So if you want to have a plan for your organization or your team or your department, think of it that way. Now is a bit more certain. As you move into your plan to try to build it, think of the very near future as a bit more firm, certain, with a small variation in what might happen. As you go further, try to honor the fact that the deeper you down the future, the more uncertain, the wide variation in terms of outcomes that might happen. And again, I'm not telling you this is what you will do. I'm saying this is what will happen, regardless of what you do. The environment is happening, AI is happening, COVID is happening, and we don't know when, how, why. And as we look deeper into the future, things get uncertain in a wide variety of possible outcomes. Yeah. So keep that in mind. It's just a bit useful, especially if you're interested academically on this topic. And again, these are what we call the 3 horizons. So horizon 1, horizon 2, horizon 3. So as you plan in your organization or department, think that the near future is more of a horizon 1, which is a bit more certain. And usually forecasting can be useful in it. As you go down the line deeper into the future, think that you're really shifting gears into horizon 2 and horizon 3. And try to honor that thinking, because as the variation of outcomes happen in the future, this is the more uncertain, this is the less useful forecasting becomes. And the less uncertain your plan is, your plan of action is, because the environment will vastly change in a bigger variation. Okay? So I'll skip these just for now. All what I want to highlight here is that the interesting thing about these 3 horizons is that, and that's the bridge to the scenario thinking that I'll be introducing in a second, what will happen here in horizon 3 has what we call some weak signals in horizon 1 and 2. So that's the good thing about the deep future, is that even the deep future has early weak signals in the near future. So keep all that in mind. That's very useful as we build the scenarios a bit later on. Skip these and start with, so what is scenario? What are scenarios? So scenarios are simply not forecasting. So let's start with what scenarios are not, which is what one thing you're hopefully familiar with, which is forecasting. I just introduced to forecasting, which is simply extrapolation of what we know in the past and trying to assume that what will happen in the past will happen in the future. So that's forecasting. This is the first definition I want to introduce to the scenarios. It is not forecasting. So what is forecasting? Present and past. Forecast, linear, milestones into one future with one mindset, which is dominant mindset, which happens in organizations, in families, or whatever, or you personally trying to think. And then you say, okay, I have my own thinking, my own belief system. This is what I know. This is what I think. This is how I perceive the past and the now. Let's extrapolate. Let's push it. The future will be X, Y, Z. Done. That's it. So that is not scenario thinking. This is exactly what we're trying to mitigate through scenario thinking. Okay? By the way, this future that you generate in your head is called the official future or the ghost future, which is something sort of looming in our heads, and maybe verbally we even sort of echo it in our circle, saying, this will happen, that will happen, and the likes. And Egyptians would know that we're very, very skillful in doing that. Instead, I want to imagine multiple futures. So as you see this one future, I want to generate multiples of that one. Force my brain to say, okay, thank you, my brain. You brought me this one. Park it for now. I want to generate 3 more, 4 more. Yeah. So that's sort of a discipline. It's a thinking discipline to say, okay, I know I'm biased. I know my brain is working that way, trying to think of the past and the future. I'll honor that. I'll capture that, but I'll park that. I'm not going to use it now. I'll just put it on the shelf and let me consciously generate a couple of more ones. And think of it as multiple movies. I don't know if any of you are familiar with any of these movies. What is the common thread between these movies, if you're familiar with any of it? Anyone into movies, cinema? Or just dedicated academics? Any thoughts? دكتور نهى عندك حاجة في الشات؟
Yeah, I think there is a lot of chats here. Yeah,
طب
they
ما
are
تقولي
clever
لو في
in
حاجة بترد على السؤال يعني.
action films, futuristic vision, and yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
what.
so absolutely. So it's all science fiction, future-oriented movies. Yeah, whether yeah, it happens to be action as well, but that's not the point, right? So, and when you see these, they're mostly all box office, yani very famous movies, right? And they're all trying to depict a future. Are these futures in these very prominent movies the same depiction of the future? Or are these different futures? Any thoughts?
I think it is different. It is the best.
Absolutely different.
Yes, in the
They're
order.
vastly different. And that's exactly what scenarios are. And I think of the term scenario, by the way. So scenario comes from cinema, actually. In cinema, we write scenarios, right? So actually what happens is force yourself to say, okay, I think the future is like this. Perfect. Give me 3 other movies of what the future might look like. And that generates to us this type of picture. So instead of this single mindset forecasting one future, you jump into multiple mindsets, whether you disciplined enough to do that, but most importantly, if you capture other diverse group of people and try to talk to them, so you can really enrich this discussion, and you start thinking of multiple worlds that might happen, multiple futures that might happen. And by the way, with multiple futures comes multiple paths to the future. So it's not going to happen the same way. Yeah, that's a very, very different way of thinking. And it's a very enlightening and insightful way of thinking. Yeah. Some people confuse these two by saying, yeah, but we actually have this forecast and we've ran some sensitivity analysis around them. Sometimes they even call it scenarios, right? So we actually changed the price from $6 to $2 and from $6 to $8. And this is the typical corporate language of really what we call technically sensitivity analysis. It's a best case scenario, worst case scenario, base case scenario. This is not what I'm coming to talk to you about now. These are not scenarios. Yeah, scenarios are genuinely different depictions of what the future might look like. That's one message. The other message is the futures have nothing to do with you. So what we're trying to generate in this process is not you and what you will do. It's what will happen outside regardless of you. Yeah, these are things that will happen. A pandemic might happen. If you do X, you do Y, you do Z, COVID will happen. AI will happen. Climate change will happen, right? So it's not you, it's what will happen around you in the environment, right? So I hope this is clear. This is a sort of foundational slide. If you have any issues with it, let me know. What I want to add to that is we're not really here to say forecasting is bad. Forecasting is useful by definition. Actually, the worst thing about forecasting is that it's mostly correct. That's the most dangerous thing about it, because it's mostly correct until it misses the very big thing. And then we're all getting hit by the bus. Yeah, because it's impossible for the forecast to capture the big wild cards. So keep that in mind. This technique is to complement forecasting, scrutinize forecasting, not to kill it, right? Any questions? Stop me anytime.
Yes, I saw someone raised, Azza raised her hand. So
It's me. It's actually very interesting thinking of what you are saying now, because I want to reverse it. So what you're trying to say is that because we imagine a certain future in our heads, we work our way into it, and it happens. But if we imagine different scenarios with different futures, this will open potential paths to other possibilities, right?
No, I'm not saying it will happen. I'm saying it will mostly happen, but in a few big instances, it will not happen. And when it does not happen, we are facing a big issue. Yeah. So you will forecast, again, back to a very typical organizational language. We will forecast to sell 100,000 units in the coming year. Yeah. Why is that? Because we're extrapolating from the past. The past we sold 90,000. So next year is 100,000. Typical stuff. No problem. And probably it will happen until it does not really happen at all, because COVID hits, or because our AI happens, or because a competitive landscape shifts and a new competitor comes into market. The big things that will really, really shake you up will not be depicted in forecasting. And we need a different tool to depict these big things that might happen, because the time cone widens in the future. So you can really mitigate against the big things that might hit you while you're really, really not paying attention. Exactly.
Yeah, it's deeply philosophical and very clear. Thank you.
Good. So that's that. So again, what is scenarios? Let me sort of repeat it very quickly. It's really developing possible visions of the future, possible movies of the future, scripts of the future, beyond what we know and have. Why? Because it really helps us stretch our thinking from what we already know and assume, and it helps us make decisions, as I said, positions us with an advantage, and trying to navigate uncertainties that are actually heightening as we go in this day and age. How do we do it? We'll spend the rest of the lecture trying to say how we do it, but in a very, very simple two-word highlight, it's really asking what if. So what if is the key to trying to build scenarios. If you ask yourself what if, it really helps a lot with that. And we'll clarify in a minute. So there is a video. I'm not sure if we'll be able to run it. So let me try to do that. And if it doesn't, we can move on. Let's skip that. Can you see the YouTube? Dr. Noha, can you see the YouTube?
So I can see navigating and
that's the YouTube. Excellent.
Yes.
Perfect. Let me make sure the sound is on as well. Let me know if you hear it.
Okay, you can. Yes, we hear.
Perfect.
But
Okay.
raise the sound, the volume, please.
حاضر.
I
هاي.
think it's from your computer itself, the sound in your computer.
شغلانة عشان أجيب الصوند ده. أجيبه منين الصوند ده يا أستاذ؟
تلاقيه في الجنب تحت كده.
بس أنا كمان إيه ماسك بتاع جديد، فأنا مش أحسن حاجة في الموضوع ده. لكن anyway، طب خلينا نرنت، لأن أنا كده ولا كده هحط لكم كابشن فيول.
هو على اليوتيوب I can run it from my computer.
ماشي، بس هنضيع شوية وقت يعني.
طب خلاص بلاش.
خلينا نرنت كده ونشوف لو في مشكلة let me know.
Okay.
I guess we all face uncertainty, don't we?
Great.
Yet all of us still have to make big decisions that can have important consequences, whether personal or organizational. But as behavioral economists like Dan Kahneman have pointed out, we tend to be trapped within the limits of our own experience, which leads to all kinds of problems. That's why, for the last 50 years, Shell has been exploring critical uncertainties through scenarios, asking what-if questions that encourage leaders to stretch their thinking and consider what you might call alternative memories of the future.
For most of us, thinking about the future is quite tricky. That's because imagining the future and recalling memories both use the same areas of the brain, which means that we can only really imagine the future as being similar to what we already know from the past. One way of challenging our assumptions is by becoming aware of and understanding different perspectives. For example, on Christmas Eve, 1968, the first manned mission to the moon entered lunar orbit. Ironically, the mission's aim was to explore space, but that evening the astronauts took an important picture, not of space, but of Earth. And it gave us a totally new perspective of our planet and our future that would go on to inspire generations of environmentalists. Life magazine called it one of the most influential images of all time. So by understanding present issues from multiple perspectives, we become better at anticipating alternative future events and trends.
Some scenarios look at very specific and immediate situations within a short time horizon, like challenges within the Eurozone, or Brexit, or developments in the South China Sea. Others look out over decades at the development of the global energy system and its impact on the environment.
We start out by thinking big. We think about the major trends that are beyond our control, such as demographic changes, politics, technological progress, or climate change. And then think about their potential influence on people's behaviors and attitudes, on things like the economy, urbanization, transport, and healthcare. Then we explore the potential impact these in turn may have until we're able to model very specific scenarios.
We also try to learn and to stimulate deeper collaboration by publishing material, discussing our thinking extensively, and developing scenarios with governments, think tanks, and other interested parties. It's very much an outside-in approach. While our own multidisciplinary team and around 150 other Shell experts might have contributed to some of our large scope work, up to 300 external experts may also have been involved. At its heart, scenario work forces decision makers to consider alternative possibilities and reflect on their implications. Over the long term, this new scenario mindset can be the most valuable outcome of the work, because as well as bringing different understanding and perspectives into a coherent whole, we're bringing new insights to life in the hearts, minds, and actions of key decision makers. That's why I often refer to two scenario crafts, the analytical and the social. I believe this will help our company and other leaders make wiser decisions, as we aim to provide people across the world with the energy they need for a decent quality of life, which is also environmentally sustainable. This is a critical economy-wide challenge because everything we do needs energy, but it can be achieved. Shell scenarios are helping us prepare for that future. And I hope this approach will also help you prepare for the challenges and uncertainties you might face in the future.
Any thoughts, questions, insights? No? All good? Is the story clear? Yeah? Okay, good. So let me move on then. And I'll tell you the very practical reason actually people invented scenario thinking and planning. So this is the real story. This was invented in the business world, not in other domains. The other domains were more in intelligence and military, and it was invented more in the late 50s and 60s after World War II. In business, it started in the 60s in Shell. So in 1965 specifically, Shell created this unit, which at the time they called the planning unit, and they tried to think differently about the future and how the future might entail. So they actually created this story about what if, again, what if? What if the normal way of doing business in oil changes? What was that at the time? It was literally that the Western companies would come to the Middle East, take the oil cheaply, push it to the West, and fuels the industrial machine in the West. So that was the business as usual. And it has been there for years, and nobody even thought that this might be disrupted in any way. So this unit literally said what is written in this slide. They said, all things being equal, the power in terms of oil will shift in favor of the Middle East producing countries. So it really says, yeah, the West is in control of oil today. It actually might shift and the control might go back to the Middle East countries. And that was unheard of at the time. Nobody even believed them when they said that. And actually, it happened in 1973, 8 years after this scenario was built. You know what happened in 1973? Anyone?
Of course, the October War.
Yeah, and what happened in October War? It impacted immensely the oil industry, and the power shifted back to the Middle East and the Gulf area, where the Western companies were highly impacted. Guess who was 2 steps ahead of everyone else because they were drawing scenarios at the time? It was the Shell company. So it was the least impacted by this. It was impacted, obviously, but not as deeply as others that were not at all impacted, sort of thinking about this kind of scenario. And again, so this is really the what if. What if something that were used to happen stops from being happening? So that is, it's a very famous case that we always talk about. So that's the story I was telling you about here. This is more of I'll skip that. This is a bit technical for now. And this is more of a terminology, just for you to get used to this scenario terminology. As I said in a bit, scenarios are not yours. Scenarios will happen, or might happen, or possibly will happen in the environment, in the context. So don't say, I am doing this and this is a scenario. This is not a scenario. If you are doing this or you're thinking of doing this, we call this options and choices. You choose from options and you take actions. That's you. Scenarios are something that happens in the environment surrounding you. Yeah. So keep that in mind. It's a useful distinction because people really confuse these terminologies. Okay, so why scenarios? As I said, we've answered that already, but I'm just repeating that now. It's really about the blinders that people have about the firm beliefs that they think will happen in the future, but they never happen, because it's what we call the ghost scenario, as I explained. We'll skip all these, but these are all very prominent examples of very important people, very insightful people, really, really missing the insight into the future. This is Ballmer from Microsoft when he saw the iPhone and he said, the iPhone is a joke. It has no chance of success. And we know what happened next. And many, many other reasons for people to believe, to miss miss big opportunities or get impacted highly by threats because of this type of thinking. And again, it really helps a lot when you start shifting the question into what if it happens. It really releases a lot of tensions, because if you really forcefully say this will happen, it has a big chance of not happening, and it has a big chance of people resisting it. But if you say, what if that happens, it opens the window to other possibilities that might happen as well. So it's a really very useful language. So if you miss all what I've said so far, and you take out one thing for now from this session, try to discipline yourself to ask the question, what if? It's a very useful question, and it can really get you a long way into mitigating the uncertainties and navigating it. This is a use case I just like to sort of throw in the mix, because it really is easy to comprehend a bit. So this is pharma, this is pharmaceuticals, this is, we are all customers to pharma, right? We all use medicine, right? So it's very easy to understand that. And if you think of pharmaceuticals, what is the past? What is the today technology? It's a very simple story. People get sick, they go and get a medicine, and everybody gets the same medicine, and we swallow the medicine and we get treatment that way. So that's the model, right? People get sick, they take the medicine, they feel better. And if we keep extrapolating this model, it's very easy for people to say this will continue to happen all along. Nothing else will ever happen, right? And that impacts a lot of people. It impacts the customers, obviously, but it also impacts big pharma, the big pharmaceutical companies that are very happily enjoying this model of generating medicine, selling it to everyone. The question is, what if? So what if this model doesn't prevail anymore? What if, and then we pose two big what ifs and see how can we challenge that. What if people don't get the medicine when they feel sick? Is there another possibility that might happen? And the answer actually is, yeah, there could be a possibility that people get the medicine before they get sick. And there are a lot of weak signals to say that from a technology, genome perspective and the likes, where there are models that can be built through genome sequencing and the likes and smart tech and whatever that can depict and anticipate sickness before it happens. So there could be a future where you don't take the medicine when you get sick, you take the medicine before you get sick. So it becomes more of a prevention medicine rather than a treatment. And that will change a lot, yeah, in our lives, but also in big pharma lives, right? That's one possibility. So it's a huge leap. It's a what if that can really change something significantly from what we know now. Yeah, if we leave you to your brain, you would have never come up with this. But if you force it, it will come. What else could happen? Let's imagine a world where if I get sick and you get sick, we don't go and get the same medicine. It's not the same Panadol anymore. I'll get my Panadol, you'll get your Panadol. So it becomes customized. Why? Because we have, again, genome sequencing, we have smart watches that depict our vitals, we have different chemistry in our bodies, and technology can reach up to a level where, this type of Panadol is for me, this type of Panadol is for you. So it becomes more of a personalized medicine world. So these are radical thinking, but if you start combining these together, we're really stretching what's happening today, right? So we're saying, you think today is a generalized medicine? Let's polarize this. What if it's personalized? And do you think it's treatment is the key thing? No, no, no. It's prevention. If you stretch what we call polarize, you come up with very interesting 4 scenarios, 4 movies of what pharma would look like in the future. A typical one, the business as usual one, which is actually generalized medicine and treatment. That's business as usual. We do that today, we've done that yesterday, it's all good, right? But if we think of a world where there is prevention, not treatment, and there's personalization, you come up with something that we've never seen before. This is really reinventing pharma. Yeah? And that is a scenario that could happen, possibly happen. And there are other combinations. There could be personalization with treatment, and that is sort of my medicine, but after I get sick. There is also a combination of prevention with generalized medicine, and this is the healthy patient. So I'll never be sort of sick because I'll always get the medicine before it comes. Yeah, and these are 4 radically different scenarios. One of them is familiar to us. The 3 others are very interesting, and it can inform a lot of our future actions. And it's not a ghost scenario. If I leave my brain to it, it's not going to work. We need to have a disciplined approach to it, a different structure to come up with it, right? If you're missing this one, or is that okay? Are we all okay with it? Can you envision the what if, the stretching, the polarization, different scenarios, the different movies of the future? Yes or no?
Yes.
في حد
Yes.
For me.
يقول no؟
Yes.
تمام. أنا كل ده I'm just scratching the surface. The next session is face to face, but this is scratching the surface.
Yes, you take me back for 6 years when I told Shell. Yeah. So it's amazing. I'm very interested. Thank you.
حلو قوي. طيب, let me بقى take you through a 5-step or 6-step process that you can actually, if you really pay attention, you can actually start generating scenarios as we speak, because it's not that difficult. It's just an intuitive but disciplined process, and it can get you a lot of sort of insights into what the future might look like, right? The first step is actually to define what you want to look at. Right? Academics in the room? I'm all academics? Yes, maybe? So academics have to frame things, right? Put the question up front. So that's exactly what we're trying to do here. So to really frame it, you need to understand what are you looking at? What is the key issue or question you want to for? It could be something like what I've seen here, what I'm putting in the slide. How will food systems, our food that we eat, look like in 2030? So it's literally 5 years from now. Keep in mind that we'll be eating 8.5 billion, probably 9 billion by now, by then, maybe more, right? So it becomes sort of a very framed question. So we're looking at food systems 5 years from now with the very big rise of population. And that's a big question. And you can say, business as usual, we just agriculture as we've done since the pharaohs, and we'll feed everyone. Yeah, but if you look around you, you'll find drought, no water anymore globally. You'll find that it's getting to be very risky on health, what we're doing. Huge waste. We throw probably half of what we produce. Super inefficient. And it's getting unsustainable. At some stage, this system will explode in our eyes. So we hope, actually, that the future does not match the past. But how will it shape up? We need to start using our imagination, right? So what do we do next? We do something called the driving forces exercise. We actually start understanding the system, the space of what we're looking at. So in our case, it's the food systems. We really need to understand what the food system looks like, and we need to look at big signals happening today that I've mentioned earlier. And this is through a diverse group of people. So think about it. We've said we need a diverse group of people so that we ensure a rich level of insights. Yeah, so keep that in mind. It's very useful, and we can cluster what we come up with into what you might be familiar with, pastel, best, or steeple type classifications, right? And this is the basic step. What I really do about that, if you really want to look at it from an academic perspective or even practitioner perspective, you need to go at the systemic level. You can't stop at the pattern level or at the level. You need to dig deeper into the structural, systemic driving forces that are really impacting this food system. Yeah, so keep that in mind. Again, a huge topic in its own. System thinking is a huge body of literature, and we'll talk about it in a later session. But the question, but the big warning message is, don't look at things in a superficial way. You really need to go deeper systemically into the drive forces that are impacting the system you're looking at. So this is a depiction of it. You really need to dig deeper from the event level to the pattern level into the structural driving force level. Yeah. Again, I think we're running out of time, so let's skip that, but that's the basic message I want to leave you with. So that's a working example. So in this case, I'm structuring it around the simple model, and you can see something like, for instance, population growth. That's a systemic driving force for systems and for many other things, even the energy system likes. So this population growth needs to be looked at very cautiously, because a 9 billion, 10 billion, 12 billion population on Earth is totally different from having 6 or 7 billion. It really puts a stress on all the systems that we're living on in the past. Yeah. Unemployment is another social trend. Diet choices is another trend, and the likes. Technology, agri-tech, high-tech economy, tech fairs, all these kind of trends are systemic. Obviously, water scarcity is a big thing. Climate change is a huge thing. Land use is a huge thing. Land security, migration, all these structures impacts food systems. So we really need to understand them and connect them together. And that's the second step after framing the problem or the question on entail, right? Once we do that, we start classifying these driving forces. What do we classify them into? We are really looking at something that we cannot really forecast. So whatever you forecast, that's good enough. Okay, fine. I can forecast probably population. Yeah, we probably will be in the ballpark of 9 billion. It's not really an uncertain variable, right? So what we're really looking for are things that are very important, and it's very difficult to forecast in the future. So in AI, we probably know that AI is coming anyway. So that's probably something we know. How big is the AI impact on education is a big question. How deep it sort of disrupts our educational system or higher education system. No. So these kind of big don't know uncertainties are the ones we really need to capture. And once we capture, the very interesting thing we do is that we actually don't have to answer them, because what you will answer them with is a wrong answer. So what we do is we polarize them. What we mean polarize them? We cover all bases. We say yes and no. We say high and low. So we really put extreme answers to it at a continuum. And now we know it's this range of extremes. The truth lies somewhere in the middle, or the future truth. Yeah. So we don't answer, we just put the whole spectrum of the answer on an axis. Once we do that for two of these very big uncertainties, we can actually start building our scenarios, because we literally put the polars on X and Y axes and generate 4 scenarios around them. So that's how we generate scenarios in a very simple 2x2 matrix. We put the very uncertain driving forces that we can't answer, and we stretch them polarize them, and we superimpose them together. Once you do that, you generate 4 scenarios. So in our case, and that's sort of the case from World Economic Forum, this is back to the food system. There are 4 scenarios of food systems by 2030. What are these? We superimposed 2 critical factors, and we came up with 4 scenarios, future world possibilities that might happen. So we can be actually aggravating our current failed model, which is we spend a lot, we waste a lot. And we keep connecting with each other, and with connection, we just keep burning more, wasting more. So it becomes a world consumption more and more, and with extreme measures on climate, pressure on food safety, pressure on land use, pressure on water, and the likes. So this is sort of business as usual, but it's getting worse. That's one possible scenario of the future, but it's not the only one. We can actually another one that's a good one, which is we get to change our habits and demand, and we become more efficient. And we become still high connected. By efficiency and connectivity, we can have a better world that is well connected, but it's efficient, and it's really working together in a good way, in a green way. So that's another possible scenario we can live in. But there are other scenarios. You can have a world where you start fragmenting the world instead of connecting the world. And we can actually see very strong signal now of nationalism, of closure of boundary, of borders, and the likes. So if the world gets to be fragmented with low connectivity, but they're still super efficient as we are now, what might happen in the future is a world of haves, have-nots. People who are insulated, rich, eating, happy, educated, and people who are really droughting and with no water and food. So it becomes a polarized world that is having low connectivity, hence fragmented, with haves, happy people, and have-nots, people who are suffering. That's a possible scenario as well of the future. The fourth scenario is, again, because it's low connectivity, but we're efficient, there will be haves and have-nots as well. But nice haves, not waste haves, but have-nots islands as well. So it's islands of efficiency and islands of have-nots. They don't have enough food or water, whatever. So there are actually 4 scenarios generated by these 2 ways. Sort of takes discussion in a deeper sense, in a more systemic way, rather than the initial feel ghost scenario that might come up in your head if you just close the room and start drawing on a whiteboard. I don't know if that sort of makes sense to you. And then we name these type of words because we action them. So we need to put some names to it. So a word we called unchecked consumption, which is this crazy word. This is called survival of the richest, this one. We have local and new global, and we have the open source sustainability, which seems to be a good scenario we might hope to work towards. Once we land these scenarios, what we can actually start doing is generating some options we can do. Remember, scenarios happens, you don't have any control over them, but options you have and choices you have. Yeah, so you start saying, okay, what if this world ends? What do I do if I'd like it? What do I do to try to prevent it today? So I'm starting to generate strategic options today for something that might happen in 5 years by saying, okay, let me do some options to make sure this doesn't happen. And let's do some options to try to make this world happen. I've already talked to you about forecasting being a terminology. So what is forecasting? I stand here and I look at the future, right? What we will do here is what we call backcasting. So I go into the future. Now I know the future. There are 4 futures. I anchor myself in one future and I backcast. I say, okay, now if this happens, what should I be doing to either to make it happen or not to make it happen? So I start working backwards, so to speak, in a backcasting to generate options and eventually choices. Obviously, I'm not talking person level. I'm talking on national level, on a global level, on an organization level. And it really, really hedges your positions. It really mitigates your risk. Rather than just blindly going into one future, assuming it will happen, now you're really opening the time cone and envisioning multiple futures and being very knowledgeable and rich about your strategic optionality into what you want to do, what you don't want to do, or what you don't want to see. So what do you do to not see it? And you can even say, okay, this option, this scenario is interesting, it's extreme. Let me just keep an eye on it. That's a good enough act, by the way. You can say, I'll keep an eye on it. If I see enough signals, I'll start acting. But I won't be acting today. So what I'm saying here is just don't jump into action on every scenario, but you can at least knowing. So in psychology, we call it knowing is doing. Once you do, once you're aware, you can actually start at least mentally be prepared for these type of things and monitoring them. Early monitoring system. Yeah. And that's backcasting, generating options. We can go into many things, but let me wrap up and then hopefully listen to what you want to say, if you want to say anything. And this is sort of beware of your biases. So that's a big message. And the message is clear from psychology. If you have a brain, you're biased. And anybody in this call who thinks they're not biased, they are double biased. So beware of that, right? And the best way to de-bias yourself is not only to aware. Awareness is very useful, but also surround yourself with different, who think differently, and listen. That's one thing. Broaden the context. So don't be hostage to the ghost scenario in your mind. I'm telling you now, this is not going to happen. And the biggest thing that will not happen will really impact big, because that probably the big thing. So keep that up. Look out for weak signals. It's actually today. Yeah. So if I ask you AI, you have this conference on AI. So when was AI? You must have discussed this somehow, probably in a full day. When was AI sort of started the weak signals? When was that? Weak signals of AI. When? Now we're 2025. When do you think weak signals started? Any answers?
Signals started for what?
For AI. Yeah,
AI.
we're living in the AI sort of now, right? Everybody's talking AI. When was AI started as something that people started working on, thinking about?
I think 1 year ago.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I think was the pilotless airplanes and drones.
When was that? Give me a date. يعني a year.
In the early 20s.
I was in
Early 2000s.
No, I was in a conference and they told me that it is 50 years ago was in the world, and it was very expensive, and it was for such some organization, and it was not for public, but it was there for a long time ago. But I'm saying it's 1 year ago for myself, as I didn't know how it is important for me on a personal level. It's from 1 year, but I think it is there from the beginning of the computer system and neural networks and this kind of
Yeah, in the
technology.
60s.
Yeah.
It started in the
Actually,
60s.
it's actually in the 40s after World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah, Riham wants to answer as well, right?
Yeah, I think that it was really started long time ago, because, like Americans were just, or maybe like the West, were just developing a lot of things, and they were developing some sort of factories, and they were working on machines and robots and just preparing like arms being from robots. I know like we all extract this information maybe from the science fiction movie that they have started. or they have shared, but some of them were just kind of predictory about the future. So I think that was actually earlier. We as a country, countries that are consumers for the products, I think that we have reached it for that later.
Yeah. Okay. Again, 40s, really 40s and early 50s. So AI taking us by surprise is not an excuse. And I'm not talking personally, even on national levels. You just said consuming countries. We will continue to be consuming countries until we start looking at these trends ahead of time and preparing for them. And now we can be ahead of the curve. Yeah, we can be ahead of the by just looking and waiting until people do things, and then you start consuming it. So look for weak signals. It's happening today for something that will come in the future. Same thing. As it happened, other things will happen. Stop being surprised and start thinking, especially in your expert and domain. Yeah. Challenge assumptions. Challenge the forecast assumptions. Get buy-in from stakeholders and talk to a lot of stakeholders. That's very critical. Enrich your scenarios by stories, by talking to people, by talking to diverse set of people. This will enrich your scenarios. And definitely the process spurs innovation. If you really want to innovate in a space, it's a very useful tool. You start depicting scenarios, and it will open all sorts of opportunities and challenges this type of exercise. So it will give you a lot of thoughts, creative thoughts. It's a creative tool as well. And it's about storytelling at the end. So keep all these in mind, and I hope you enjoy it. That's all what I have. I was sort of planning for a workshop, but obviously it's difficult with this
setting.
portal.
Yes.
But I hope
it's my fault. It's my fault to turn it to webinar, but I'm so sorry. But
No.
every time I listen to you, it is an eye-opening experience. Always scenario planning is a charming topic for myself. And I thought, and I was right, when we incorporating the scenario planning with our conference will take us to another perspectives. You taught us out of our borders, and you open our eyes for new perspectives. We outreach the future by your insights. For myself, you always let me think again and again and have new ideas and insights and revising myself. And sometimes I said to myself, you are so stupid, try to learn from him something. But as usual, you are inspiring me and inspiring all of us. Thank you very much for being with us today and inspiring us like that. I have a lot of comments on my WhatsApp. They said he is very inspiring, he's very creative, he's very innovative. We can't follow this kind of creativity, but this is Dr. Moataz Darwish. أنا دايما بقول عليه بالعربي هو أحسن واحد في مصر بيتكلم في سيناريو بلاننج. عمري ما شفت حد بيتكلم زيه، وأعتقد إن في العالم ما فيش زيه. He is one of the key figures in Egypt and the whole world in scenario planning, and it's very yes. We want all to clap our hands for you. It's very honor and a privilege to have you with us today, and as usual, you are my big supporter or my initiatives, and thank you very much for being with us today.
For pleasure. I hope you followed it. I know it's a bit difficult online, but I hope you picked a couple of nuggets that you can sort of work on and build on as well. Really pleasure to be with you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Moataz.
Best of luck, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Shine in the morning sun. Egypt's wisdom meets everyone. Edu-Next-AI calls the world to see a future we're building for you and me. Egypt co-codes the future hand in hand. AI at the Nile's edge we stand. From our roots to the the stars we soar high. Edu-Next-AI, we rise, we try, learning together, bright and free. The Nile carries our destiny. The Nile carries our destiny.